Hello, friends of ZDNET around the world. This is the official ZDNET show that we do each week at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Eastern time. We live stream. You can also, of course, watch this after the fact, which I'm sure many of you are. Welcome to you as well. I've got both of my co-hosts with me here today, ZDNET's Kerry Wan and Sabrina Ortiz. Hello, hello.
Hey everyone, big week as every week this month has proven itself to be. So lots to talk about.
Oh man. Kerry, you hanging in there? You've had a lot of things to review.
No. Actually, it's been very dull at work.
Yeah.
You know, just using laptops, tablets, VR headsets, all of that.
Just like September, right? It was just as dull as September was.
Yeah, you know, at this point, every month feels like September, so it's quite nice.
That's a good thing. We like September here. Lots of things to see and do and talk about, try, places to go, devices to see. So this was definitely the case this month so far and this past week. So we're going to talk a lot about a bunch of things. We got a lot of things to talk about as Techtober has only 1 week remaining. So we've got things that are happening, things that haven't happened yet. We're sort of wondering about, but plenty to bring the audience up to date on, our thoughts and our either hot takes or early takes or full takes in some cases on some new products. So I thought we could start with face computers because we've talked a lot about XR glasses, XR headsets, AI glasses over the last few weeks. It's just this constant parade of products, and people are probably might get the impression that this is a glasses or an XR podcast or something because we've talked about this stuff so much. It's not. It's just that it's the hottest topic in tech right now, and we had some new stuff, of course, highlighted most recently by the Galaxy XR headset from Samsung. It's really Samsung, Google, and Qualcomm. They've been working together on this for a long time. They've been working together on something for a long time. I think they were working on one thing, and then Apple Vision Pro came out, and they're like, okay, let's scrap those plans and work on a different thing, because this headset looks and I believe, I haven't seen it yet, you two have, feels a lot like Apple Vision Pro in many ways, but wanted to give you all a chance to tell us your first impressions. You've both gone hands-on with it. I'm going to be going hands-on with it next week, and ZDNet will have its full review. But early on, there are some really interesting things that this thing does, and I'd love to hear your all's first kind of hot takes on it from spending time with it. Now, I should also say you both spent time with it at Google I/O in May, and then you've spent time with it again here in October. So who wants to start?
All right.
Sabrina.
Yeah, all right. I'll go. What I really noticed that I thought was really neat, the biggest standout to me is like the Gemini integration. I was talking to Drew Blackard over at, Samsung, and we were having a conversation. I brought up the point that it almost feels like the actual headset XR AR experience is separate from the AI experience. Both of them working really well together, but the AI almost feels layered, like an overlay on top of it. And I enjoyed that because I could see that being carried over to the glasses, which I teased, which we could get into a little later. And also because it makes it so that it's like a seamless transition from Gemini on your phone or Gemini wherever you're used to using it. So that was the biggest standout to me. I really enjoyed being able to just kind of get Gemini's assistance on anything you're viewing on the natural environment around you, and excited to see that come to their glasses. But Kerry,
what did
probably have. Oh, yeah. Go.
Actually, I want to ask you, Sabrina, what did you try with it? So while you were, using it and you were using the AI to sort of ask some questions and do some things, what did you try and like, how well did it go?
Yeah, it was actually really fun. Me and Kerry both got to split the demo in half, so we both did different things. So for mine, because I was the most excited during the keynote about that new feature where basically you can, with the restaurants that are, have willingly opted into this program, you could see the inside of them. So like you could like, click in and actually walk through the restaurant to see the vibe. And I loved that because I'm one of those people that if I plan like a date night or a get together or anything, like I want to make sure the vibes are right. And it was a really cool feature. I got to demo that. And then of course I was able to again activate the Gemini overlay on top of it and be like, okay, well, and then ask questions like, would you say this would be a good spot for a date night? Or what kind of like food do you think they're serving in here and that kind of thing? And then get that assistance on top of it, on top of doing the virtual walkthrough. That one was my favorite. But then I also got to do like more basic ones, like watching YouTube, with like the main screen. And now this is actually pretty cool. Even if the video is not recorded spatially, it can automatically make it a video that you could experience it in that spatial, like
spatializes it.
Yes, exactly. So as if you were there. So that was pretty cool to try out actually too. But yeah, those were my two biggest standouts. I know, Kerry, you tried some different ones than me.
Sorry, I have one more question for you,
Oh,
Sabrina.
please,
We'll go to Kerry. When you were watching that video, can you in the screen go to Gemini and say, "Hey, Gemini, who's this person on screen?" Or the person they just mentioned this name of this person. Who is this? Can you layer AI on top of stuff that's in front of you?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's exactly what I mean by the layering. Yeah, it's not like something integrated into like the YouTube application for it, but you can, the same way you call on Gemini and anything else, you could call on it and then ask it its question and it would see what you're seeing, that kind of thing.
Nice. Kerry, all right, sorry, my annoying questions are over. Over to you.
No, it's all good. I'm actually kind of interested in that as well. The one thing I will say is that it's, the demos that we did, they were in a way kind of controlled. So like we went through like a routine of all the stuff that the Samsung and the Qualcomm and Google reps were trying to show us. And so like we didn't have as much of an opportunity to explore those other things like asking Gemini to identify the person on screen, especially if it is like a personal photo and there is no sort of like reference for who that person is online. But those are like things that I think would be very interesting for us to look into once we actually review the headset. And I'm also glad that Sabrina talked a lot about the AI stuff because I do think that is a big part of the story with the Galaxy XR headset and really all the other Android XR stuff that will eventually come out over the years. That to me feels like the biggest advantage compared to Apple Vision Pro right now. Just Google is a little bit, far ahead when it comes to those AI capabilities and the way they're sort of weaving in Gemini over all the existing XR experiences compared to what Apple is doing with Apple Intelligence and Siri. That said, I think from my point of view, I still feel like this kind of a headset is very much geared towards entertainment, whether it's consuming content on a bigger screen or doing like a multi-view sort of experience where you have like 2 NBA games playing and you've got something else happening on the side. That still feels like the pitch to me. And I think it's very much similar to what Apple has been doing with the Vision Pro. There is like a sort of like B2B and business side to this as well. Of course, these companies, they want to get these headsets to workers so that they could use it to train with modeling and building, ships and stuff. But those two still feel like the main sort of use cases to me, which I'm not really sure if that's like enough to convince people to buy these headsets. But what I will say is that Samsung and Google and Qualcomm as well, the one thing that I think they did much better is probably the price of the headset.
Yeah.
It's $1,799 or $1,799, which is a little bit less than half, or sorry, a little bit more than half of the Apple Vision Pro's price. I think that makes it a lot more accessible to people. And it's not including all the other sort of benefits that people are getting, all the various Google AI services, the YouTube Premium subscriptions, the NBA League Pass for the whole season that you're getting. I think Sabrina did the math for this and like the value is a little bit more than $1,000. And so, if you're someone who sort of looks into all those numbers, then I do feel like you're getting yourself a bit of a good deal with the Galaxy XR headset.
Yeah, I love that consumer perspective for people buying it and that want to go out and invest in this. Would you both say though, at this point, this is still very much an early adopter product. This is probably for people who want to be on the bleeding edge. Many of the people in our audience, or they are developers thinking about, do I want to, or businesses and corporations, thinking, do we want to build an app for this? Do we want to build experiences for this? Do we want to, prepare ourselves for this ecosystem that's, that's coming, but still is probably a few years away? Is it fair, or are there other potential users that I'm missing, in that roundup?
I actually talked to Drew about this too, because I was asking, I guess, the difference between this audience and if he sees it being the same as the glasses audience. And he also used the word like this is mostly for like early adopters. And this feedback too, which I thought was interesting, he mentioned will be probably used in developing the glasses to see what use cases that people mostly gravitate towards. The only other thing I would say, in addition to early adopters, I think this is a really good device for people who are using it for work purposes, where the glasses won't as much. So people who want that virtual desktop setup and all of that, maybe this would be a good product for them too.
Spatial computing. So like being able to go on the road, and instead of like taking multiple monitors with you, you could take one of these and get like a 3-monitor setup with your laptop in a hotel room.
Yeah, Kerry's done it on a plane before.
How'd that go, Kerry?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that the Galaxy XR headset is a lot lighter, and I like to think it's a lot more comfortable. It's been a while since I put on the Vision Pro headset, but I just remember that one feeling very heavy, especially with the material choices there. But the Galaxy XR headset, I mean, it is the same sort of like back strap kind of thing. There is no like strap in the middle that's suspending from your head. I know that that's something that Apple is sort of leaning into with the new Vision Pro. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Sabrina. I think it's definitely a sort of like cross between like a personal entertainment system and something that someone could use for work, whether it's like just opening up multiple windows and browsing that way, or just connecting to a PC and doing like a Windows/Android linked experience.
Yeah, very good. We should mention for our enterprise folks in the audience too, that these things do have some enterprise uses, especially for product design, product collaboration, where you're troubleshooting a product, looking at a 3D model essentially, instead of like shipping. Because when people prototype products, they're shipping 3D, printouts of products or parts, all over the country and sometimes all over the world, to have product teams collaborating on it. And so that's one of the promises of this technology. It's going to save you time in product development. It's going to save you a lot of money of shipping things, printing things, making people travel all over the place to collaborate. And we are seeing some of that. And we also saw, 2 years ago at CES, we saw Sony unleashed a very sort of quiet, launch of its headset, which was really almost purely aimed at enterprises. They had a collaboration with Siemens, and so they were really focused on this. Apple Vision Pro is focused on this. I have a story coming that's going to talk about all the companies that have adopted Apple Vision Pro and are using it for these kinds of things and others. And so we have to expect that, Samsung, Google, and Qualcomm talked a lot about open ecosystem. In the launch, they mentioned open ecosystem and open platform. And now I'm forgetting the name of what Qualcomm called their Spaces. Qualcomm Spaces. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's what they're thinking of, is very similar to this idea. Like you can use these things and then have these kind of collaborative workspaces and that. So for those in our audience who are working in companies and thinking about those kinds of use cases, this is another option besides just the Sony and Siemens solution or the Apple Vision Pro. So that's pretty cool. Speaking about Apple Vision Pro, briefly, Apple did announce the M5 upgrade to that. We'll talk more about that in a minute. We're going to talk about some Apple products. It is primarily just a chip upgrade that has some benefits that we'll go through, but not really too much more to see there. But we want to talk a little bit, staying on the glasses front. Staying on XR. headsets and smart glasses, we want to circle back a little bit on Meta Ray-Ban displays and Oakley Vanguard, because Sabrina, you got the chance to get a demo recently of the Meta Ray-Ban displays. Kerry and I, of course, were at Meta Connect, and we got the demo on them. I've got another demo since then, but wanted to get your thoughts on those, and I could maybe get some reaction too from Kerry and I in terms of how you experienced them, compared to what we did.
So before I went, Kerry and I were in the office, and he was like, I just know you're going to like love them and be like, oh my God, these things are amazing. And he knows me well, because I came back being like, oh my God, these things are amazing. When we were talking about them last week with Scott, you had mentioned how you wouldn't wear them every day. I would wear those things 24/7.
Okay.
I thought they were so much more comfortable than anybody has mentioned or talked about. They felt like my regular glasses. I thought they didn't feel much heavier.
They do. You sort of forget about it after a few minutes, right?
Yeah, they just feel, I guess, because I'm so, again, desensitized to having something on my face, because these are actually like my least chunky glasses. You'll have seen me with my hexagon ones, thick framed ones that could hold a whole chipset in them.
Exactly. They look like smart glasses. They look like they should be smart glasses.
Exactly. So I'm used to the chunk. I also thought they looked great. That was another thing that everybody kept saying, like, you wouldn't want to walk around with those things on your face. People would know you're wearing them. Again, I think this is a aesthetic thing, but I opt for chunky glasses. So I actually thought they looked cute. Like, I would wear them if they weren't smart. And also just, of course, all the demos, which we can dive into before I monopolize this whole call with me ranting about how much I love them. But I thought the demos were great. The one that stood out to me the most and I was exhilarated by was a video call. Like, being able to do a video call and show what you're seeing from your glasses and see the person you're talking to me felt like it was straight out of like 2090, like the future. So I love them, clearly.
Nice. You were predisposed a little bit, like you're the AI, having an AI assistant on your face, right? Like you're here for it. For sure. Kerry, what did you think after you anticipated Sabrina really liking them, but after she came back and you were talking to him, did it change your perspective on the glasses at all?
I don't think it necessarily changed my perspective. But I do think, I mean, it is a newer product. And I think having multiple perspectives and sort of takes on it is really good. And so, I mean, eventually I think we have to really see like what, all the rest of the consumers are thinking. I think so far the reception has been pretty positive for the glasses. They're hard to get. The reservations are constantly getting pushed back. Hopefully the reason for that are less so the fact that, tech enthusiasts are trying to get their hands on them, and more so that maybe people are interested in getting a pair of glasses with displays on them. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely like the start of this sort of like new evolution of smart glasses. And so if the end point is the same thing, similar functionality, but much thinner and slimmer form factors, then I do think it's a very exciting start.
Yeah, it changed my perspective a little bit, because you saying that you liked the look of them, Sabrina, surprises me a little bit. I expected you to be like, ooh, they're just a little bit, they're a little bit too much. So that's interesting to me. Also, the video call thing that's a good call out. That's an unreleased feature, right? Or is
no,
that
the unreleased feature, which I loved, by the way, too, was the handwriting one.
Typing, or handwriting.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to test that. So Kerry and I didn't get to test that. That's not out to the public yet. So in the public version of the product that's out there. So that's interesting. I will say that I had a similar experience in terms of the weight, because they are 69 grams versus the traditional Metas are 49 grams. Although the Gen 2s are 52 grams, they're just a little bit heavier just because of the battery, I'm told. So they are about 20%. What would that be? 20, 25, 30% bigger, maths. But it's not that noticeable. When I use them, I didn't also feel like, oh man, these things are really heavy. It was not like Vision Pro where you just notice how heavy that thing is on your face, right away. So I think you're right. Like there's something to that effect.
Also,
that you could wear them more.
sorry, I was gonna say you have the Vanguards too, which we'll get into in a second, but those are 66 grams, which is around basically the
Yeah,
same thing.
about the
And those
same.
are created for like running, skiing, like, doing so much physical activity. So I'm sure
Yep.
they designed to have comfort in mind. And I found them to be extremely comfortable. And those are literally athletic, glasses. So I think it's
Yeah.
pretty good that they're both the same weight, actually.
I feel like the real stress tests with all these smart glasses, and I've been telling myself this ever since trying the first early generation Ray-Bans, is that like you really have to wear them for the whole day, or try to wear them for as long as you
Yeah.
can, to really get a sense of like how they feel on your head. So it's like all the demos that I've done, even the Meta Ray-Ban display ones at Connect, it's like for those 10 to 15 minutes that I wear them, I think it's okay, because I'm so focused on the experience and what that's like, and I'm just trying to learn all about them. But then it's like once I go back to the real world and I'm wearing like the Ray-Ban Metas, which are like the lightest of all of them, I'll notice like by midday that like, oh yeah, like I'm starting to feel a bit of a tenseness on my head, and there's like some sort of like lightheadedness, I guess, that I feel. Obviously, this varies across all the users, but yeah, I'm like genuinely curious to know what it's like to wear the display glasses for a long time. I know Scott mentioned that the only reason why he can wear them is because the battery runs out, after 3 to 4 hours. That seems to be the case across the board with most of these smart glasses at this point. I think the Vanguards might be the best so far when it comes to battery life, but yeah, I'm curious to know like what that's like once people actually wear them for a while.
I will say over the past week, so I was on PTO this past week, soaking in some sun, and I wore the Meta Oakley Houstons essentially every day for like 8 days in a row. They're 53 grams, so they're about the same, as the Meta Ray-Bans. I wore them every day, never ran the battery life out on those. Like almost always was at 40 to 50% at the end of the day. And I was taking lots of videos and listening to music and things. And yeah, it didn't bother me actually, the weight. Now those are different because they don't really sit on your ears. The Meta Ray-Bans, like most glasses, sit on your ears. The Houstons essentially hug the side of your face. So some people don't like them because they're like they're squeezing my temples, and I don't like it. For me, it's more comfortable than actually having something sit on my ears. And so, but that's a good point, Kerry. Like that's the test of like how could you every day use these things. And Sabrina, you've had some experience with various pairs too. Have you worn them all day?
Yeah, I was about to say with the Vanguards, because I had my review. Another thing that I feel like I constantly forget is that, and it's especially helpful when you're wearing the sunglasses pair, like the Vanguard or the Oakley ones, is that you have the charging case too. So even when I started running low, I popped it. I walked into the grocery store, so I popped them into the case for like, I don't even know, however long I was in the grocery store, like 20 minutes. And I walked down, I'm like, oh, they're like fresh on juice again. Like, so that's also a perk when you're wearing sunglasses, like the ones you were wearing, the Houstons, and versus, eyeglasses. Cause if you have your prescription in them, you can't really do that. But yeah, no, the Vanguards, I've been impressed with their battery life as well. When I used them straight through, which I tried doing for the review through a walk, I did experience like, what was it? I think 30% battery life going down in 2 hours, as opposed to the 10%, like, cause they say it lasts 9 hours. So it would ideally be like 10% each hour. So that was interesting.
Were you like recording video for an hour straight or something?
I wasn't, but I was using, I was trying everything. So I was like, I had to connect it to my, to both Strava and Garmin to see like both of how I was tracking both of those. And I was talking to it, and I was taking photos and like I was doing all the things that I could. I was talking to Meta about what I should get for dinner. Like I was doing everything you could within those two, listening to music, everything you could within those 2 hours. So I think that's why longer test wears will be able to better tell. But I just want to flag that the case is also there. And I feel like nobody ever talks about how useful having the case and just being able to charge it on the go is without having to worry about plugging it in. And that's a huge bonus.
The drawback to that is you kind of with smart glasses have to carry the case with you everywhere, both because they're really expensive glasses and you got to protect them. And then also you may need them to charge with. So that's something. And the Houstons have a much larger case. So we could talk about that. Sabrina, you and I are going to deep dive a little bit more. We're going to double click on the smart glasses. But Kerry has to catch a flight in a little bit. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Apple products that were released. And then you and I will bring it home with some of those other conversations, as well as some big AI news and some hot takes as well. So Kerry, let's go to you to talk a little bit about the new Apple products that came out over the last couple of weeks. ZDNet's been testing them, you personally tested the M5 MacBook Pro. Maria Diaz tested the M5 iPad Pro. And so both of those are up on ZDNet. And then was also, as we mentioned, the M5 Vision Pro, which we can talk about briefly as well. But Kerry, walk us through, what we got with the new chip that landed. The M5 has tested pretty well in benchmarks, but while we mention benchmarks, we tend to lean in more to real world use cases. What did we learn testing those two new M5 products, the Mac and the iPad?
Yeah, I mean, for Apple, I think with the M5 series, it was something that I think we've sort of expected. Apple, for the past couple of years, they always release the base level of their new silicon chipsets before the Pro and the Max variants of them. And they all tend to sort of like do the same job, which is replace the devices of those who have been using them for 3+ years, let's say. So in this case, the M5 MacBook Pro and the iPads, Apple is mainly comparing them to the M1 devices, as well as those who are still on Intel MacBooks, let's say. And so obviously the gains from those couple of years will be pretty massive. It will be pretty significant. And the good thing is that while you're getting those benefits, the price is still the same. So for the MacBook Pro, you're looking at a starting price of $1,599. The iPad Pro still starts at $999, and the Vision Pro is cheaper than ever by -$0. It's still $3,499. And so yeah, the main benefit here, I would like to say, are two things. One is better AI performance. And so one of the new differences is that all of the new cores are equipped with neural accelerators for the GPU, which basically enhances things like on-device AI performance, compute in general. Apple says it's, I think, 4x the peak GPU performance compared to the M4 series, which I mean, the M4 was already a really good device or really good series of devices. And so the benefits there are really nice. Beyond that, I mentioned before with gaming, Apple basically has the third generation of their ray tracing engine for this one. So you could basically expect more realistic visuals when you're playing games. You could, if you're walking by like a water puddle in a game, you could see those reflections really well through the water. So, I mean, in general, performance, you mentioned before, Jason, that we did the benchmarks for them, and the numbers, of course, are much better than the year before and the year before that. They're a much bigger leap compared to the M1 devices. I compared it with the M1 Max MacBook Pro that I have in hand that I mainly used for work. And the difference there is pretty drastic. I will say the one real world use case that I've sort of taken away from using the M5 series is that I open and keep a lot of Google Chrome tabs open at once. And so I like the fact that they don't crash as often anymore. There's no spinning rainbow wheel thing whenever I open multiple tabs. That to me is the biggest teller that there is, obviously the progress there in terms of performance. But for folks who do need a bit more computing, folks who do want to use their devices and push the graphics and do 8K video recording, I'm sure they'll probably notice the difference there as well compared to their M1 devices or something that's a little bit older.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of the audiences for this, folks that are in our ZDNet audience, are people who are developing AI apps, AI workloads, running things, AI models locally on their machine. With that upgrade in some of the GPU and the neural engine, they should see some stronger performance on that stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I would say they benefit the most, but at the same time, I will also say that like folks in general who are looking to upgrade their devices, whether it is the iPad or MacBook, the base M5 probably will serve them the best.
Okay.
It's not any more expensive than last year's M4 devices. It might even go on sale within the next month as we're going into the holiday season. But yeah, folks who want something a little bit more powerful, I think the best bet is probably to either wait it out for the M5 Pro and M5 Pro or M5 Max chips, or even like the M5 Ultra later on with some of the other Mac models, or just consider some of the Pro and Max series for the M4 from last year.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up buying devices to sort of put a bow on the Mac, which is because one of the things that we've recommended really since like M2 is that the MacBook Air since M2 has really good performance for some of these high workload things, for AI development, for running models locally, for even some light video editing, that isn't just sort of like an audio editing, that isn't for like a major editor who they do this all day, but for somebody who might have to do it for maybe an hour or two a day, or only a few times a week or something. You can get by with a lot on an M4 MacBook Air, which we tested and has done really well. But really, we've said the same thing since M2 MacBook Air, which is since it got that redesign. M2, M3, M4 MacBook Air. If you have like an M1 MacBook Pro or an Intel MacBook Pro, before you jump to the Pro and say you have to have it, unless you sort of really need the SD card or you really need, multiple ports, those kinds of things, you should really give the if you're thinking about buying this M5 base level MacBook Pro, you should really give a look to the M4 MacBook Air, because you might be able to save a bunch of money and save some weight in your bag and all of that. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, my personal still MacBook Air M1, and whenever I've gotten my hands on a MacBook Air, not M1, even one of the lower ones, not an M4, there is a significant difference there. So I would second that advice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Kerry, sorry, go ahead. Buy a device.
No. I was just going to add that, the one sort of like caveat for me after testing the M5 device is that I still wish that Apple would add like a cellular modem to it, so that folks can sort of connect to like LTE and get data, because it is one of those devices that I think more and more people are just using as they're traveling or just working outside. And I think having that connectivity is like the one thing that it's missing.
Yeah, that's a good segue to the iPad Pro M5, because one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that one does, of course, have the cellular connectivity. And because of that, there's a lot of things you can do with it. You don't have to hotspot. You don't have to go Wi-Fi surfing. So you're more secure. It's a lot more convenient. It's a lot more versatile. But Apple does a lot of work in the background to basically close down or freeze tabs so that they're not running in the background as much, which they don't do on the Mac, right? The Mac just does it. So a Mac will suck a lot more bandwidth as it is today. They would really have to probably change the OS a little bit, or have like a cellular mode that acts more like an iPad Pro if they did it. That said, they're perfectly capable of it. They've done it in iPad Air, and that would be an awesome feature. We've been saying it for a long time, that if you could get cellular connectivity in the iPad, in the MacBook, even if it was just in the Air, but the Air and the Pro too, that like you do in the iPad, that would be such a game changer. Speaking of the iPad, since we don't have that yet, Kerry, what did Maria think when she reviewed the iPad Pro, the new one with the M5 chip?
Yeah, I mean, with the iPad, I would say it was another one of those devices that was fairly straightforward to sort of read and get a sense of like what you're getting and what you're not getting with this year. The biggest thing, I would say, you sort of mentioned it, Jason, is the sort of connectivity upgrade across the board. So it's got the new C1X chip that basically, I think Apple says it yields like 50% faster cellular data speeds, which is a big bump from like the standard LTE models. But there are also things like Bluetooth 6, Wi-Fi 7 that comes with the other N1 chip. And so, I mean, those are all benefits that I think people might not be able to take advantage today, but they will be able to going forward. It just makes the iPad a very future-proof device. And I think in those ways, it's even more advanced than the MacBook, basically. That gives people a good reason to sort of opt for an iPad versus a MacBook. But the other reason, and the one thing that I think Maria sort of got from testing the iPad as well, is that like the software is just much better now. iPad OS 26, the features they're getting, the multitasking features, the things that remind people more of a Mac and that I think a lot of people have been asking for, that's sort of lifted the iPad experience in general a lot. And so, yeah, I would say those are the biggest changes. There are some smaller ones, like I know it got bumped from 8 gigabytes of RAM to 12 gigabytes of RAM now, but everything else I would say is mostly the same.
Okay, that's good. I did a perspective on I did the M4 iPad Pro this summer. I looked at it with running the iPad OS 26 update to really see how well could it do as a work machine. And first of all, that M4 iPad Pro was a beast. Like it was already running really, really well. I also tested one with the matte display, the nano texture glass that they have. That was amazing. I'm really impressed by that, and I'm glad that they're starting to bring that to some other products too, because it reduces fingerprints, it reduces glare, obviously. It's just a nicer screen to use sort of day in, day out. And so I think they've done a great job with that. It's really expensive. I feel like it's more expensive than it needs to be. Hopefully that comes down over time. But I did find that for people like the three of us that are sort of doing a mixture of creating content, running lots of apps, running things side by side, web browser along with other apps, whether it's AI apps or other kinds of things, Slack. I did find that it just is not quite as efficient as a Mac, right? Like I think most people that were doing sort of a little bit heavier workload stuff like us are going to find it's not great. But if you are just in a web browser all day, like you're mostly running web apps, you're answering emails, you're streaming some videos once in a while. The iPad is good enough now with the way that you can save files, with the ways that you can make windows and multitask a little bit, do light multitasking, not like we're doing all day long. I think a lot of people can get away with it. And especially if you're somebody like if you're a salesperson or you're just in a job where you're on the go a lot or you're in working from cafes, you're going to find that cellular piece, because you can get cellular connectivity pretty inexpensive added to your mobile plan for like $10 or $15 a month. Some plans less, even like Google Fi just throws it in with your plan. You get it for free. You can have it to 5 tablet devices or sort of companion devices. So I think those folks are going to find that they'll really like the iPad Pro a lot, and it can do almost everything they need. Now it's going to cost you as much as a laptop. So that's the other thing to consider, because these devices are not cheap. But it might be worth it for you if you get those convenience trade-offs, especially like you said, Kerry, the connectivity. That's like the biggest one.
I think it's perfect for students, really. That's who I think, like, and even my friends who are in grad school,
Okay.
I feel that's who I know. The only people I know who actively ask for like the holidays, like I want an iPad, is students, I think. And I think it's because it's, again, portable. You want to take notes. It's like you can't, write on your Mac.
On a Mac, you can't. Handwriting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also like so many of these apps on iPad are getting so much better. I met somebody at the Amazon event this week, and he was a big tech nerd, and he was like, I love Notability's AI suite. And I used Notability all throughout high school. Mind you, my high school I went to was an iPad first school, which makes me very unique.
Interesting.
Was banned. Textbooks were banned. Books were banned. We were only allowed to use an iPad for everything. So I have particular bias on students being able to use it really well. And I used Notability back then, and it was a great app. And now it's like, loaded with all these AI features. So I feel like for students, this is a huge win in particular. So I could see that being a really good target audience.
Very good. All right, Kerry, we're going to let you go so that we are not the cause of you being late for a flight. You need to head to the airport. Thanks for logging in, though. Great to have you touch base on those things, especially the Apple products, but also XR. So yeah, go take a headset, get on your plane, watch some movies or something.
Kerry, excited to hear about your adventures.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you next week. All right, maybe will we see him next week? That's a good question. We'll leave
catch
that
up with his adventures eventually.
Yeah, we will. Very good. All right, Sabrina. So we're gonna take sort of a little bit of an extended dive on some of the glasses a little bit, especially the Vanguards, because you spent some time with them, and we saw the most audience interest. Interestingly enough, during the Meta Connect event, we saw more interest from our audience in the Meta Vanguard, or the Oakley Vanguards than the Meta Oakley Vanguards than we did on the Meta Ray-Ban displays, which sort of surprised us. But I guess it makes sense in one sense because the displays are really early. It's a really very early adopter product, whereas the Oakleys take, a product that is already popular. It's already out there. It's been out there for decades. People are really interested in them. And they have a certain, if you like that look, you're good. But they do some extra things because they are a little chunkier as glasses. You mentioned earlier that they are 66 grams. I didn't know that, but so they are a little heavier than the like 49 or 52 grams of the earlier ones. And Kerry was saying last week, or maybe Scott Sky from CNET was saying that the regular glasses are about 35 grams. That's what they shoot for. They try not to get them heavier than 35. So these are all a little heavier, but the Vanguards were really interesting. We expected to like them. Yeah. You've spent more time with them. I've just gotten mine, only had them like 24 hours. You've had them for a couple of weeks now. Tell us a little bit more about how you tested and what you learned.
Yeah, totally. Well, first I want to mention too that the weight might be more, but I find them incredibly more comfortable than the Houstons. And I think I find them more comfortable because, first of all, like they literally, again, these are geared for athletes. They have like a nose pad. I don't know if you've noticed it or given it much thought, but I could tell that it helps with comfort and weight distribution.
If we can show it.
Yeah, there you go. And it's also so much larger that I feel like it's almost better distributed across my face.
It spreads it around.
Exactly. So that was very, I was really pleasantly surprised with comfort altogether. Look wise, I'm not the most athletic, wouldn't really surprise anybody. Kind of hard to be that way in New York City anyways. But all that said, aesthetically, I thought they looked great when they first released. I think they still look great. And I live right by Prospect Park. That's my park of choice. And I went on over there and I didn't stick out in any way, shape, or form. Everybody who's on a run or a walk, a lot of people who are committed to the bit will be wearing similar, sunglasses. And then I even got a compliment when I was walking in the park and somebody was like, "Nice shades." I was like, "Hey, that's awesome." So,
Nice.
So I think it's more like if you look the part, because I was just wearing athleisure, and I think most people can make it work. Because I know I posted on Threads and a lot of people responding were like, "I think I'm going to look silly in them." Again, coming from somebody who's not uber athletic, I just, I live an active lifestyle, but I'm not like running marathons or anything.
Yeah.
I think you could pull it off. I think most people, you'd be surprised by how much you could pull it off just by like, again, playing into the bit, wearing some athleisure and going out there.
It's funny because that you said people mention that they noticed them. So it's interesting if they just sort of thought they were just cool sunglasses, because clearly they didn't say like, "Oh, those are those, smart glasses or something." But I had the same, this last week when I was on vacation, I wore essentially the Houstons every day. I had like 3 people tell me like nice sunglasses. And literally, I don't think in my life anybody has ever told me nice sunglasses, but they sort of stick out. The ones I have, the ones that are more typical. They're the white with the sort of more orangish yellow.
Hold on, these.
Yes, those exactly. So I had those, wore those, and I got like 3 comments on, nice sunglasses, probably because they do look a little different with white frames versus most people's sunglasses frames are darker.
Mhm.
I also don't necessarily wear that different of frames. I typically wear like sort of the what are the like bomber flight pilot sort of, you know,
Aviators?
aviators. Thank you. I usually wear like some mirror aviators
I
if
wear
I'm just
aviators too.
yeah. So, and I like those. They're fine, but they're not going to stand out or,
No.
look, trendy or something. But yeah, I was surprised how many people stopped me and said, nice sunglasses, or I like your sunglasses. So
Yeah, I
that's
was also
cool.
pleasantly surprised by how crisp the audio. I'm always surprised when the
Yes.
first thing I do, I shoot I send audio messages with everybody I talk to.
Yeah.
All the close people in my life. So first thing I'm always like, "Oh, I'm sorry guys, like this might be a really crappy audio because I'm testing this new product." And every time they're like, "No, it sounds great." And I listen back to it and they sound great. And even as you're walking in the elements, there's birds chirping, there's wind, there's
Yeah.
people in the park talking, there's New York City car horns and everything. And I'm always really impressed by that too. I think that's probably comfort and then that were the two most impressive things to me.
That's cool. So I should mention too, with the Houstons, I think the Houstons are a little bit, I'm going to work on a piece. A number of people have asked us for this. They've said, could you do a comparison of the Oakleys and the Ray-Bans? But they're basically the same. They don't have that many different features. So I've sort of like, we could, but there's not a whole lot to say. But since you want it, we could. But one of the things I've thought, the Houstons are very similar to the Ray-Bans. But I do think they're a little bit louder, just like slightly, maybe 10 or 15% louder.
So first, ye ask and ye shall receive. I did do a comparison of the Meta Ray-Bans and the Oakleys for the site. So that article's up. But again, those are the Meta Ray-Bans Gen 1, not Gen 2. And in terms of the audio and mics and everything, technically the Vanguards and the Oakleys have the same amount. I think it's a 5 mic array. But the way they're distributed is different. So on the Vanguards, they're 3 in the center and 1 in 1, whereas opposed to I'm pretty sure that's it. And then as opposed to with the Houstons, they're more concentrated on the sides. So even though I think generally speaking, again, mic quality, having a problem with people not be able to understand me either time, you should be getting better recording or sound recording from the Vanguards because they're closer to your mouth. So that's a perk too, given what you just flagged too.
It's a good point. I did go, I meant to talk about this when we were on with Kerry, but I did get a demo, but this is a good, because we're double clicking on glasses, too. I did go and do a Best Buy demo of the Meta Ray-Bans display, just because I wanted to see what are our readers getting when they go and not getting the white glove treatment like we've gotten, when we did demos. And I learned some really interesting thing from the demo person that we could talk about. I don't know. We probably won't have time, but very interesting. But
I'm interested. Tell us.
Yeah. So some very cool things. I asked him. So I was like, so do you like this? It's fun. He said, I love this. I said, do you work for Best Buy or you work for Meta? And he said, I work for Best Buy technically, but Meta pays my salary and it's a contract gig. I only work in the Meta demo area. And there's 2 of us that work here essentially full time. Most of the time we work at the same time. And what he said is it's like a contract through the end of the year. And then they're going to see how well it does. And then they might sort of make it a longer term thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That tells us a little bit of like, Meta they're sort of seeing like, how is this going to go?
Right.
They don't have a lot of inventory. He said it's been really hard to get some inventory, but he also took it out. And this is before the houses were released. They were just released this past week on the 21st. But
the Vanguard, you mean?
Sorry, the Vanguards. Yeah. The Vanguards were just released this past week. So he pulled out some Vanguards and he said, but I have gotten an early look at these. He said, you can't take a picture. You can't do anything. I was like, I already got pictures. We're good. I told him I was at Meta Connect and he enjoyed that. But he said, he has a motorcycle. So he said, I've been wearing these on my motorcycle. And he said, and the interesting, I've tried giving people a call and I thought this is just not going to work. Like there's no way. And he said, I could actually have phone calls on them from my motorcycle. And he said, that's like a first. And he's had the other, versions in the past. So that was the first time I thought, ooh, that's interesting. I want to try that.
Probably
and
then
the
mic array.
The mic array, exactly like you said. And this morning, I've only had one call with on them, which was earlier this morning. And I asked at the end of the call, I was like, hey, by the way, how's my audio? Because I've been on these new like Meta Vanguards. I'm like, Oh, interesting. I didn't realize you were mobile for that. This sounds like your mic, and I have it's not this mic, but I have a professional mic, an MV7 microphone in my normal sort of office setup. They said, I thought it was on your setup because it sounds like one of the professional mic that you have. And I was like, no, I don't know. They might've been flattering me. So we'll see. You and I, it's funny because later this afternoon, you and I are going to do a call, Vanguard to Vanguard. And so we can hear what the sound is like. So we'll know more and we'll report back next week. But I think you're right that one of the key characteristics of these is going to be that mic performance, but also the loudness of them. Like, holy cow! Like when I had these things at half volume, they're about the same as what the Oakley Houstons or the Meta Ray-Ban, even Gen 1 and Gen 2 are at full blast. And if I put it up full blast, I'm worried about my hearing. Like it's so loud.
I was walking with them. I was listening to my hype playlist because I was doing like a longer walk and I was just like in the groove. It's a beautiful fall New York City day. And I was like, wow, these things are loud. And I'm looked down at my phone and I'm like, they're not even at 100%. I think they were like at 60%. And it sounded like I was satisfied, right? Like it was still loud enough where I was like, grooving, but any louder, I would have been like a hazard, I think. So I was impressed with that too.
Yeah, very cool. Now, there are a couple other things about these in addition to the sound performance, and really the sound these are audio glasses, right? All three of the Meta, the non-display ones, all of the other ones we're talking about, they're largely audio glasses. So the audio has to be pretty good, right? So, so the fact that that's improved is a big thing. But how about the camera in the middle? Yeah, how has that been for you? What's it been like testing that?
Love it. I find that for me, the purpose of wearing any of these, smart glasses for content capture is the fact that it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about, okay, let me whip out my phone and take a photo. It's like, oh, let me just tap. And I actually had a moment. I, again, love Prospect Park. There's a little doggy pond. And like doggies started coming up to me and I'm like, this is perfect for like the review. This is great. I need to get a video. And I just hit it. I just tapped it as the dogs were right there. In my head, I was like, probably missed the moment. Like, oh, well, it is what it is. That would have been such a great moment for the review. Bummer. But it got it. And it got it. Like everything was positioned perfectly, even though I literally like matter of seconds scrambled because like the two dogs that didn't want to come up to me suddenly came up to me. And I think the reason that I was able to do that was because it's so much easier now for you. If I'm looking at it, it's going to capture it. Whereas with like the Ray-Ban Metas, it should be able to do the same thing, but it takes a little tweaking because I'm always that I'm like, either my head's on the side or only capturing out of one eye, or I'm looking down, but I'm actually looking at the person in front of me. So that's always a little bit more tricky.
Yeah. So you found that with it centered, you were capturing more of what you thought you would be capturing versus on the other ones, it's really easy to be off center and not capture what you thought. Okay. That's great to know. I haven't tried that yet. So that's a big plus. It also has an action button. So instead of the things being on top, they're on the bottom.
In the little nook, if you could actually show them the nook that it's on, the nook that notch is so convenient for finding the buttons, I find.
Yeah, that's a good thing because you can end up fiddling to figure out. Same thing. I try to fiddle where, am I touching the right spot to pause the music or turn up the volume to swipe forward or swipe down to lower the volume. So it is a little easier to locate that stuff just because of the design of the glasses.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. Okay. And then also the action button automatically comes and I didn't change it paired to, or at least my pair came with hyperlapse, which is also a bonus of these pair because these pair could take video in not just standard video, but also the hyperlapse and the slow-mo, which was awesome. And I did enjoy the hyperlapse. Again, it's a little chaotic when you have that on because it is basically speed recording everything. But imagine you're running miles, or you're doing something where you want to capture the entirety of it. I could see it being super useful if you're like an athlete or trying to capture specific activities. So
yeah, that's cool. What I found with the photos and video is it's sort of like anything. It's sort of a novelty at first. So you just take a bunch of photos with it, you take a bunch of video, but over time in using it, and like I said, I was using it some when I was on vacation last week. I've used them on vacation before. what I find is if there's time for me to take out my phone and frame the shot, then I absolutely should. And I think everyone should. And if you care about what the quality is, obviously, I care a lot about the photo quality. You care a lot about photo quality. If you have time to do that, then do that. These aren't going to replace you framing up a photo and using your phone, which has a much better sensor and more lenses and stuff. That's still going to be the case. But where there's times that it's like really fast and you don't have time to do that, or it's awkward to pull out your phone and take it, or you want that POV video that is sort of weird. Sometimes it's hard to be in the experience and be recording it at the same time. For those kinds of things, it's nice. Like it really is good. And then the other part is for it seeing what you see from an AI perspective. We've really just touched on that. And Meta's AI capabilities are pretty limited. So I don't think we're truly going to see what this is capable of for a while until we have, Gemini on glasses, until we have ChatGPT on glasses, Claude, Perplexity, some of these other more advanced models. I don't know. You cover AI all the time. I'm sure you've used some of the AI on this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised by how much more I use them this time around. I think I use them more this time around because, again, this is why I'm a big fan of the sunglasses, because I think that wearing them all day, every day, I don't know if there's going to be many times where I'm just like, oh, hey, I need assistance with this, when it's like I'm going through my natural work day, like I'm busy, but when I'm on a walk, at one point I'm like, wait, let me talk to this thing. Because as I mentioned, I went to the grocery store and I was like, what can I make for dinner? And I'm like, obviously doing it partially because I'm testing, but also partially because I'm like, I'm in this leisurely walk. Let me use this. And it was able to keep up a volley with me for a pretty long time, which I was really, again, impressed at, because it's hard to keep up those voice communications, especially because a lot of times when you're talking to any of these voice assistants, the slightest like creak in the room will interrupt their train of thought. And then you're like, well, now my conversation's ruined. And even though, again, I was in the outdoors, and even though I wasn't tapping anything and I was just talking like, hey, activating it, saying, hey, Meta, and having the conversation that way, it was able to keep its own for a bit. So I was satisfied with that. Yeah.
I've had a similar experience, I will say, where I was on a walk and I was just thinking about something and I was like, wanted to look it up. And I don't like pulling out my phone and like Googling when I'm on a walk, right?
Yeah.
It's just sort of like you're on a walk to be outside, like put your phone back in your pocket. But it was nice to say, you know what? I could just ask the AI. And I turned the AI, the Hey Meta thing off because it preserves battery life, and also for privacy. I don't want it listening all the time. And so, but then if you have it turned it off, all you have to do is just long press on the arm and pull it up. So I long press on the arm. I asked it some questions. I did a couple back and forths. And I was like, you know what? That was actually nice. That was much better than taking out my phone and trying to Google something on my phone or put it in ChatGPT while I was walking. If I'm on a walk, I want to be outside. I want to not be on my phone,
And also, like, obviously there's Siri, Gemini, whatever, depending on what phone you use. But I found it very helpful too. I think because I'm more inclined, I'm on a walk, I know I'm wearing these sunglasses again, as opposed to like I'm in the office and I'm wearing glasses. I used it more for things like, hey, Meta, pause this song. Hey, Meta, skip. Like, hey, all those type of integrations, which again aren't very mind blowing. You could do that on your phone's assistant too. But I think because you're wearing them, and you're on this walk or on this run, and you're conscious about wearing them, you tap into those assistant capabilities a little bit more.
So we're just at the beginning there, and it's going to be really an exciting next couple of years as these things get some more capabilities and we start seeing a product from Google, we start seeing a product from Apple. If Apple does one, they don't really have the capabilities, AI wise. I think they will have to partner with somebody. I think it's very likely they would partner with OpenAI or Anthropic or Google and bring some of those like more full featured AIs to their, glasses. We'll see. That's pure speculation. But we should see these things doing a lot more useful things in the next couple iterations. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I think that's actually a good segue, because I did want to briefly talk about a fun opportunity I had this week, and that our ZDNET readers are loving. And I love when our readers love some things. I'm like, well, there's interest, and we should talk about it too. My experience, I got to go to Amazon's Delivering the Future event in San Francisco,
Yep.
where I got to actually try on these new smart glasses that they're developing for their drivers. So as you talk about like use cases and like actually becoming more helpful, it's really interesting seeing some enterprise use cases for them already that are pretty
Yeah.
practical. Now don't get me wrong, the aesthetics of these are not the best. I think I sent it to someone and they were like, oh my gosh, you look like you're in the Matrix. I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's
And
very
then
Borg-like for Star Wars fans.
yeah, exactly. I thought it looked the most like I was like ready to, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. That's what I thought I looked like.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
either way, very cool. They have 2 cameras. The whole purpose, they have an in-lens display, but not an in-lens display the way like we were just talking about, not a color and like the one like
Okay.
even reality is like a green text kind
Yeah.
of in-lens display. And they just tell the driver things like the address, things they need to know, like is there a dog, is there special instructions. They help when the driver picks up the package, it tells them like, yes, that is the right package and that's one package of 3. Then when they get out
Mm,
of the truck, once they park and they get out of the truck, it'll tell them like actual step-by-step navigations in the glasses to get to the person's house. Then once they have to drop off the package, they no longer have to whip out their phone. The 2 cameras on them automatically take the photo of the proof of delivery. So
nice.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of little things going on that all compound, I think, to making their
Yep.
experience a bit better and ideally making your package delivery a little bit smoother. They said in the future there's going to be a feature where I'll be able to tell the driver like, no, you dropped it off at the wrong house. I can imagine
Oh,
that being
wow.
really helpful. Yeah, or at the wrong door for the wrong doorstep. So anyways, that was really cool. I got to try them on. We're really living, like Jason, I think you kicked off this whole thing. We're not an AI smart glasses podcast, but we are living in an era of AI smart glasses. So
Boy, I know it's been the main topic. September, October, there've been so much, going on in this space, and there is some more stuff to come, later in the year. We'll talk more about it. The last thing I'll say, in that demo I did to sort of see what, normal people have when they go to like Best Buy and get the demo. The one thing I need to amend from my Meta Ray-Bans display perspective was I said that they're kind of washed out, and I'm left eye dominant. It's in the right eye. So that means it's naturally going to be washed out a little bit for me. And so that was a thing. But one of the things I hadn't done when I took my first 2 demos, and this was the in-store demo I did, the just standard consumer demo that I just signed up for like everybody does, is I could actually turn up the brightness. And when I turned up the brightness on the Meta displays, then it was actually a lot better to see. And so I hadn't done that in the demos I'd done before. When I did it this time, I was like, okay, this would be more useful. So I'll give Meta that some credit. That 5,000 nit display actually did do some good in that one. And then the last thing I'll say, on my vacation, one of the features I turned on that I hadn't had turned on before, and I was wearing the glasses a lot, like I said, was for phone calls and texts. You can turn it on so that, and you can pick your contacts. So like your most important contacts.
yes.
And you can have it announce when you've gotten a phone call or a message or a voicemail from like your, favorites, from your most important contacts. And you can literally select only from these. I turned that on for the first time, and that actually ended up being a lot more useful than I expected, because even with, I wear an Apple Watch. And so I get most of those notifications there, but I miss a lot. Like, I think just because I tend to be like in what we do, there's times where you just get in a flow state and you're focused. And I also sometimes silence notifications or whatever. And, but even if they're on, I miss them. Right. And so sometimes I'll miss important messages and I'm like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to. But with the glasses, there are times when it takes me out of what I'm doing, but in a good way. It's like, you got a message, from somebody important. And so you need to look at your phone. And so I turned that on. You can have it also read the message. I didn't have it do that.
I used to have it on that, and then I just got sick and tired of it because I was like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need to know that XYZ reacted to a message. No, enough.
Exactly. It gets to be too much. I've turned it on before too, and I was like, no, turned it off very quickly.
Yeah.
But the alerting you that you've got one from like your key contacts, that's like from your,
Right.
coworkers you work the closest with, from
Right.
family members, close family members, things like that, your close friends. That's really helpful to not miss important things. Have you ever used that? Have you had that experience too?
I've used those type of features, but I haven't used it on my glasses. I use it on like prioritized notifications on iOS. And I find that it's really helpful because you also, with Apple's prioritized notifications, you get to pick like phone call from this one, Slack
Yeah.
message from that one, like that kind of thing, which I find really helpful because there's some people where it's like, I would love to answer you, but I just never want to have a phone call from you. Or there's some
Yeah.
people where like, Slack messages are imperative. So definitely think those personalization features are really helpful.
You just like read my mind. You went right where I was going, which is like the ideal state that I want for this is not for me to have to pick, messages from this person, text from that person, but to do like what Apple has started doing. Apple, we've, talked a lot about Apple has its challenges in AI, but it is doing some smart things. Priority notifications was one of the things I was going to mention, Sabrina. You actually brought it up, which is that I want whether it's from Google or Apple or whoever, I want them to, when they do glasses, I want them to figure out what the priority notifications are based on my behavior. That's not that hard to do. And then when a priority notification comes through, I want them to ping that onto my glasses, eventually in displays, right? To say like, hey, you've got an important, you just have a voicemail, from this person. You have a Slack message from this person who, knowing that I interact with them a lot. So I was saying that it's interesting because I think Apple is building now the AI features that will be needed when it releases glasses, which is that priority notification. Nobody else is quite doing that at the same level. Google does a little bit of it, but I think Apple is ahead of everybody on this, and it makes sense because of their whole ecosystem. But that is really good. And I was going to recommend to people on our stream, if you that are watching this video, if you have an Apple device and you don't have priority notifications turned on, I'd recommend turning it on and then start tuning it like the way you just mentioned, Sabrina, so that because you can kind of train it for you, right? So then when these other products come out eventually in a year, 2, 3 years, whatever it is, and they're better, and you're thinking about getting a pair of AI glasses, you'll already have it trained to give you the most useful stuff that you'll need, when that world is here, whether it's, Android, Apple, or whoever.
Yeah, totally agree. Especially now that, I don't know if you have this problem, Jason, but I have chats in Telegram, I have chats in Signal, I have chats in WhatsApp, I have chats on Slack, and then I have iMessage chats. So I feel like more than ever, streamlining where you need notifications to be like populated from is important than ever, because I'm overwhelmed constantly. I'm like, I have 100 missed chats in every single chat platform that exists. So
yes, you're more popular than I am, but I do have a version of this problem. I have WhatsApp, I have Slack, I have iMessage. Those I get a ton in, and they're sort of segmented in different parts of my life, like personal life, work, and then like my sort of volunteering, and that work. So they're all, so I know when I get one in each one, I at least know sort of what context it's coming from. I try to do that, but it still is like super overwhelming. And I would really like AI to help prioritize for that. And it can, like, that's completely within the realm of large language models, because they can look at text and behaviors and things over time and help to craft that. So since we're on AI, let's sort of wrap our last sort of set of conversations here about AI a little bit, because this is where I just gave Meta some props for some of what they're doing. I do have my doubts long-term about whether they can compete, because they don't have a Google or an Apple ecosystem. I think that's going to end up being a real challenge for them. But I gave them some kudos for some things that they've done. I do have kind of a hot take on one thing that is like the worst part of Meta AI app. Because in order to use the glasses, you have to have the Meta AI app installed, which is sort of like a Chat GPT app, but then also has glasses in it. But they have one section of this app that just really, I'm almost embarrassed for them by, which is, and I feel like it just shouldn't be there, which is essentially, I call it the AI slop, channel, where, one of the 4 tabs at the bottom, where you have the glasses, you have translation, you have the main sort of feed, which is just like, asking an AI a question, is for essentially using the Llama 4 model, generated videos and photos that are just so bad. Like it is truly AI slop. Like it is. And every time I click on it by accident, I click off as fast as I can. And I just like, oh, it's terrible. And so I really think they should get rid of it. Because not only is there the challenge with AI slop, but we've talked about Sora, the app from Open AI, which does AI video and both the intellectual property challenges with it. But if we put all of that aside, like primarily AI videos and photos, the best use of them now are for laughing with your family and friends, to like make yourself, a pop star or the coach of your favorite sports team or something, and send it to your friends who know it and get it about you. And they're like, yep, that's what you always wanted to do, and they get a good laugh out of it, especially because of how ridiculous it looks or the different versions of it look. But I think in context, it's fine, but to like put it out there, and I sort of feel the same way about the OpenAI one, too, with Sora, to like put it out there and try to make a social media feed out of it is like so dumb. Like I feel like it's so useless because the stuff looks so bad. Like it's clear that it's made with AI. It's just. Don't highlight it. And then it's even worse for Meta because theirs is worse. Like the quality is worse.
I
Like
was
it's
about
so
to say that. I
cartoony.
think
Oh,
that's the major difference.
okay.
When I'm scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, a lot of times now I see something crazy happen and I'm like, my brain's like, that looks like, first impression, I'm like, that was real. And then immediately
Yeah.
I look at the corner, so I'm like, is there the Sora watermark? And then most of the times I'll find it. Like it'll be like, I don't know, a baby grooving to a song, and I'm like, oh, that's incredible. And then I'm like, wait, and then I'll spot it, or same thing with like a dog or a pet or anything like that.
Yes.
Which I don't love because it's scary that we're getting to that point of realism, but at least it looks realistic and it's not like, oh my God, this is horrible. But to your point, with the Meta one, sometimes you do look at them and you're like, why? This did not need to float on the internet. Like straight up AI slop, like you said.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So Meta, change that. Like, please do something about that. That needs to be better. And then, I think we should talk a little bit about this week. OpenAI released its own web browser. So that was big. You and I've both been using Comet, the AI browser from Perplexity for a while. There's also OpenAI. They've been busy this week. They're busy every week. They also bought this app Sky, which is essentially an automation app, a Mac desktop automation app. These two things may seem very different, but I actually put them in the same bucket, which is essentially they are both preparing us for a world with more AI agents, where you have, it's cool for AI to do some interesting things for you, but what if it could take a few steps for you and carry out some things for you? Then it's going to be a lot more interesting. And that's why AI agents have been like the talk of 2025. These things are a step in that direction. If you listen to all the hype, you'd think AI agents are already here and they do a lot. They don't do a lot that much, right? They're sort of like, I still consider these like pre-AI agents because they can't carry a lot of things out for you without help. So anyway, wanted to get your thoughts on these two things from OpenAI, because you reported on both of them.
Yeah, no, I think I really liked diving into the Sky acquisition, because the Sky, interesting enough, and I did not know this until I had to write the piece I wrote today. So Sky was founded by former Apple employees,
yes,
of whom some had worked on shortcuts, which is interesting because it reminds me a lot of what we saw Apple release at WWDC, with more intelligent shortcuts for not, I think it wasn't just Mac OS, but just the
primarily Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I like that. I think it's taking browsers. I totally agree with you. It's very related to ChatGPT Atlas, which they released earlier this week. But I like that. I think it'll bring those capabilities a step further beyond browsing. Because honestly, browsing is one of those things where, yes, we could optimize. Sure, we could implement AI to make it easier, but we're solving almost like a non-issue. Like, was Google search ever that hard to use? Like, was it ever really that big of an inconvenience? Like,
Yeah.
sure, like it didn't populate the answer, you need to click on a couple of links, but like it wasn't really a present issue. But I like that. I think with this acquisition, they're moving more towards, again, back to almost like conversation we're talking about Samsung, but overlaying AI on top of whatever you're using to provide assistance with what you're already doing, and helping you navigate your computer, your device, your applications a bit better. So really interested in seeing what ChatGPT and Sky together look like, because
Yeah.
to me it sounds a lot like those again, Apple shortcuts updates we saw at WWDC, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I think where the web browser comes in and where it plays a role too, and I think you're absolutely right. Mac OS 26 shortcuts and Atlas, like they feel very, very similar. Where the browser comes in is, I think, where there are a lot of apps that we run in the browser, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's where it comes in, not maybe searching, but like doing things. So for example, I'll give an example. There's a pair of shoes that I like, or maybe I have a pair of shoes I liked. You know what? I want to get those shoes again, but they don't make them anymore, right? They've discontinued them, or there's a new version or whatever. And I'm like, could you go on eBay for me, do this search every day and see if you find a pair under $80 where the seller's
Sure.
in the US and they're rated 98% or above. And if they do, just do buy it now and order them for me. Like, that's the stuff that I still want, like eventually AI just to do, like, just do that for me. I would even settle for some things like shortcuts in macOS. If I could say, like, send a notification to this person at this time every week on Wednesday at this, like, somebody in my family that like needs to remember to do something, like just send send them a message from me at this time every time, and vary the text just a little bit, like by 15%, so that it's not clear that it's just like an automated, like those are things engines like should be capable of today, right? The language parts they can do. And the scheduling part seems like it shouldn't be that hard, but we're still not there yet, So like,
No, I totally
I'm, like,
agree with you. Those
ready
are
for
some
that.
good examples. Definitely some food for thought. We need developers at Apple and all these different places to be listening to you right now, or to put you on their advisee team.
I appreciate it. But I'm glad we're going to keep talking about AI agents, because once they can do some of these things, it's going to get a lot more interesting. Even though it's
Sure.
funny, Andre Karpathy, who's been working on AI, he worked at AI at Tesla for a long time, self-driving and other kinds of advanced projects. He said this week that he'd been trying to use AI agents and he was really frustrated by the state of them. He's like, it's going to take 5 years before these things are useful. I think they probably won't take 5 years. I love what Bill Gates said one time. He said, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And so I think that's the case with a lot of these, AI companies. I think that they promised even at the beginning of this year, like, this is going to be the year of AI agents. And we're not quite there. Like, it just still needs a little time to bake. But by 2030, these things are going to be doing all kinds of those two scenarios I just mentioned. Like, I have no doubt those two scenarios will be like, easy by then.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we'll be probably, bless you, sooner than that, that we'll see those two case scenarios that you mentioned too. And I think it'll be a thing where we stop talking about them as AI agents and it'll just be like, okay, we want a really helpful assistant. And I'm excited for that to happen, because I do think, and I actually wrote this how I started my newsletter today. I think we need to break out of the Q&A chatbot loop that we're all kind of stuck in right now. And all roads point back to a chatbot in some degree. Like, even the most sophisticated AI agents to some point are just like, okay, so this is an AI chatbot that could actually take it maybe one step further or two steps further. I'm excited for us to break through from that. And I do think that smart glasses are helping with that. It's bridging the gap between, the real physical world and this AI chatbot type of assistant world. And I do think that like things like this acquisition and shortcuts and stuff like that, this overlay will help with that, because we do need to break through out of the chatbot. I'm done. I'm with Q&A loops.
Yeah.
It's just enough is enough.
It's a great insight, because the whole purpose of like the chatbot ultimately is that computers are sometimes hard to work with, no matter how powerful they are, what they can do. Like even those scenarios we mentioned, there's probably ways, I'm pretty sure there are ways to do it now. Like I just don't have access to enough knowledge to be able to do them. And I could probably chat with, you know, ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity and figure out how to do those with, you know, 10-step thing that you automate through Apple Script or something else, Google Script or anything else. But what the promise of generative AI, one of the promises I think, is being able to talk to computers like you talk to people and get it to just figure out and do the thing for you, and for it to disappear a lot of the complexity of computers and be able to take 9 steps to do a couple of those really simple things I mentioned earlier that that you and I sort of wish we could do, sort of things like that, or like the priority notifications, right? It would be really cool. Like if you or I, if we could just talk to our notification center and say, okay, here's the ones I got this week. Don't send me less of those. I will need to see more of those. You didn't pick this one up. If we could just sort of talk to it. One of the things I've learned in this AI, this generative AI thing, is that we can talk a lot faster than we can type. I guess I knew that at some level, but I've been really conscious of that over the last month and realized, there's a lot of these things I would rather talk to it than type it.
I could not agree with you more.
You do this all the time, right?
Yeah, I do this all the time. I was about to mention I have a new roommate. I moved into a new place. I have a new roommate, one of my best friends since I was literally in kindergarten. And now it's gotten to the point that every time we're talking about something, I'm like, let me look it up. And I just automatically talk to ChatGPT advanced voice.
Yep.
He goes, no, not her again. No, enough. Because he gets so freaked out at the fact that it sounds so realistic. He's a teacher and he was like, Sabrina, I'm so freaked out by how good she sounds. He was like, I don't care about anything else. It's the fact that she sounds so real and it's so helpful. That he literally went to class the next day and told all his teacher, he was like, my roommate has this really creepy AI assistant, because he obviously, if you're not used to it. But to that point, I use it so often because it's just so much more helpful. I actually just used it. I booked a trip for New Year's right before CES, taking a little gasp for air. And the way we found the destination was quite literally talking to ChatGPT. And I wish I was kidding.
Wow. So this is a pro tip, because you wrote this on ZDNET, and so our readers can find it. You have taken the action button on your iPhone and assigned it to what now I think is just called ChatGPT Voice. It used to be called, or is it Advanced Voice?
Yeah.
But basically, if you're a pro user. Oh no, it's actually available for everybody now, right?
Now, yes, it's available for everybody. The limits are different, but the
limits are different. Okay, but you can basically assign that little voice, activated mode to your action button, and then it's essentially like the Siri you've always wanted, where you can open it up. Now, it can't do a lot of things on device, but it can do a lot of the sort of question, things, and look stuff up for you on the web and all of that. So awesome tip. That's one of our most popular tips of 2025. Good job. Everybody will enjoy that one.
Hey, I use it every day. So you might drive your roommate insane. That's a little caveat, but I use it every day.
The last thing I had, and I think maybe we'll save it for next week, is like the state of the AI bubble, because there was more reports, more interviews, more things on how bubbly everything is. And I have a hot take on that too, which is essentially when people are talking about a bubble, it's usually not a bubble, because bubbles sneak up on you. What's happened in the past bubbles is everybody thought like, this is great. It's going all the way to the top. It's amazing. People don't see any problems with it. They maybe make fun of things a little bit, but then all of a sudden, like one day they wake up and they're like, oh crap, a bunch of that was not real or wasn't very good. So when people are talking about a bubble a lot, there tends not to be much of a bubble. I've got a more of a hot take, a more nuanced take than that, which is that there are some challenging things about the current environment with AI, and that I think we should keep an eye on. And ZDNet does this all the time. Like we try to have a real sober perspective on things. We share the things that we think are really interesting, and a lot of things that aren't, we just don't cover. Like if we don't cover it, you can take that as we don't think it's that interesting. Right. And so that said, we do sort of we do sort of call out things like the, the AI slop channel in the Meta AI app and stuff where we think like this is off the rails, right? This is not good and somebody should be doing it differently. And we've talked about with Apple and Siri, how much like the Apple user base, like we hear this from people all the time, they're dying for like Siri to just do some of the most basic things that you can now do with ChatGPT, even that you could have done with Google AI Assistant like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and you still can't do them on Apple. And so, we have no problem calling out and figure that as part of our job, right? To let you know about the things that that don't work or that aren't optimized or that, you really shouldn't buy into the hype. But we also talked about AI on and Apple being ahead of the curve on their prioritized notifications, and that could have a really big impact on the future of their products, especially glasses. So, it's who we are. It's what we do. We talked about it for an hour and 24 minutes today. So obviously we have plenty to say, but we do this podcast because we talk about these things anyway. Like we love talking about stuff. We like, you know what, we might as well make some content out of it and put it out there for our audience to sort of bring them along for the ride. So if you have questions for us, you have other topics you'd like us to cover for the future in the official ZDNet show, let us know in the comments. Let us know your thoughts, any experiences you've had with any of the products we talked about today. Otherwise, Sabrina, you and I will sign out for today, and we'll see everybody next week at 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday on the live stream.
Totally. And we're going to start to actually fully posting these as more polished videos. So stay on the lookout for those. If you're curious, if you ever want to tune into them later, or you don't have a chance to, or you want to see like a more visual version of, some more B-roll and some clips of maybe the events we've gone to, anything like that, you could also have that to look forward to. So that's exciting.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you, people of the ZDNet community who've been part of this and tuned in live stream. We appreciate you and for the positive feedback that people have given us so far. We'll keep doing it as long as you find it interesting and useful. So yeah, Sabrina, catch you later.
Catch you later, everybody. Buckle up for one last week of Techtober.
That's right. All right.
All right,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. See ya.
See ya.